Welcome to another edition of CSEC Chemistry Simplified. In today's lesson, we will be looking at reactions of acids. Once again, I am Sir Damien LaRose. Today we will be focusing on reactions of acids, and this would be reactions of the acids with metals, carbonates, hydrogen carbonates, and bases. And to begin, we will first be looking at reactions with metals. Generally, acid plus metal gives salt and hydrogen gas only. Once again, whenever an acid reacts with a metal, it produces a corresponding salt and hydrogen gas. For example, when magnesium reacts with sulfuric acid, it produces magnesium sulfate and hydrogen gas. Now, magnesium sulfate is the corresponding salt of sulfuric acid. For the reaction, we see that magnesium is in a solid state and it reacts with sulfuric acid, which is aqueous, to give us magnesium sulfate, that is MgSO4 plus H2 gas. And so because it is gaseous, it's going to be liberated. The hydrogen, whenever we are going to test to see whether the gas is hydrogen or not, the hydrogen causes bubbling during the reaction. It can be detected using a lighted splint, which causes the gas to burn with a squeaky pop. After which we are going to show you a video of how we will be testing for hydrogen gas. For a basic demonstration, notice that we have our sulfuric acid in our test tube, and we're going to add a little bit of magnesium powder. This test tube is going to be stoppered for the reaction to go forward. After the reaction is being completed or during the reaction, an ignited splint is placed at the mouth of the test tube, and that would give us our pop. And that would indicate that hydrogen gas is produced. Notice that hydrogen gas is colorless. We continue with the reaction of carbonates. When an acid reacts with carbonates, a salt, water, and carbon dioxide are produced. For the general reaction, acid plus a carbonate would give us a salt plus carbon dioxide and water. For instance, if we should use sodium carbonate and hydrochloric acid, it would give us sodium chloride as the corresponding salt, carbon dioxide, and hydrochloric acid. For the symbolic equation, Na2CO3 plus HCl as the acid to give us NaCl plus CO2, which is carbon dioxide, and water. A point to note is that the carbon dioxide causes bubbling during the reaction. It can be detected using lime water, which turns milky white when carbon dioxide is bubbled through it. Lime water is not the lime that we use to make drink. Lime water is calcium hydroxide. So remember that whenever we're speaking about lime water, we are really referring to calcium hydroxide. So yes, carbon dioxide turns lime water milky white when it is bubbled through it. For the reactions with hydrogen carbonates, it is very similar to the reaction of the acid with carbonates. And when an acid reacts with hydrogen carbonates, a salt, water, and carbon dioxide are also made. We see the general reaction again. Acid plus hydrogen carbonate give us salt, carbon dioxide, and water. And here we are going to be looking at sodium hydrogen carbonate plus hydrochloric acid would give us sodium chloride, carbon dioxide, and hydrochloric acid. We see the symbolic reaction at the bottom, NaHCO3, and I would just like to pause for you to know that the hydrogen carbonate has a hydrogen in the carbonate. Previously, when we look at sodium carbonate, we had Na2CO3. Notice here we have NaHCO3 because it's a hydrogen carbonate. And all hydrogen carbonates would have a hydrogen before the CO3. So let's go. NaHCO3 plus HCl give us NaCl as the corresponding salt, plus carbon dioxide and water. Remember that this reaction is very similar to the reaction of the acid with the carbonate, and as such, will be a similar video we are going to be showing you. Once again, the carbon dioxide causes bubbling during the reaction. It can be detected using lime water, which turns milky white when carbon dioxide is bubbled through it. For the general setup, here the apparatus is slightly different from the previous reaction. Calcium carbonate, the bubbles are a little larger, and if you want to know about calcium carbonate, we can use a little bit of chalk to have our calcium carbonate there. Sulfuric acid, and notice that we have a stopper with an Intel tube, and that is to ensure that the carbon dioxide gas which is produced goes directly into the lime water to cause the bubbling. So this is a basic setup of how we would test the gas to show that it is carbon dioxide being produced. We will now be looking at reactions with bases, oxides, and hydroxides. And so acids react with metal oxides, hydroxides, and bases to produce a salt and water only. And so for that reason, we categorize the reaction with of an acid with a base, an oxide, or hydroxide, because they all would produce a salt and water only. So acid plus metal oxide gives salt and water. Acid plus a hydroxide would give us salt and water, or an acid plus a base would also give us salt and water. We will now go on to looking at the reactions of acids with metal oxides, hydroxides, and base. Once again, acids react with metal oxides and hydroxides and bases to produce a salt and water only. Let's go to the reaction with hydrochloric acid and copper 2 oxide to give us copper 2 chloride plus water. Note that HCl plus CuO give us CuCl2 and water. Hydrochloric acid and calcium hydroxide would give us calcium chloride, which is the salt, plus water. For the symbol equation, we would have HCl plus CaOH2 to give us CaCl2 plus H2O. The key points for this lesson: we have learned that acids react with metal to produce salt and hydrogen gas only. Acids react with carbonates and hydrogen carbonates to produce a salt, water, and carbon dioxide. Acids react with bases, metal oxides, and hydroxides to produce a salt and water only. This brings us to the end of another lesson of acid, bases, and salt. In this lesson, remember that we have learned that acids react with metals to produce salt and hydrogen gas only. Acid reacts with carbonates and hydrogen carbonate to produce a salt, carbon dioxide, and water only. And finally, acids react with bases, metal oxides, and hydroxides to produce a salt and water only. This brings us to the end of another edition of CSEC Chemistry Simplified. Join us again for another lesson as we go further into acid, bases, and salts.